to Trusty Chords, the podcast which aims to celebrate music and those that create it. If you're anything like me, then the chances are good you've been spending the past few years eagerly awaiting a full-length return from Hachiku. Started as the musical project of Anika Ostendorf just under a decade ago, Hachiku rose to fame as part of the beloved Milk Records stable, with a handful of releases preceding the arrival of her debut album, 2020's I'll Probably Be Asleep. Again, if you're anything like me, you probably listened to that album and truly fell in love with it. After all, how can you not? It's got Anika's masterful musical approach towards dream pop, indie dance, and much more combining to craft something truly special. However, for those eagerly awaiting a follow-up soon after, well, there was a bit of a wait, almost 4 years in fact, before Hachiku returned with new singles. Thankfully, it was all in the lead up to a new album, with The Joys of Being Pure at Heart arriving today on February 28th. It's a stellar album, full of that exuberant, immersive, dreamy indie pop style that has won Anika and her musical collaborators so much praise. Of course, there's no time to rest on those laurels because Hachiku will be hitting the road almost immediately, with dates in the US, Australia and Europe scheduled to keep them all busy for the next few months. Thankfully, before things got too hectic, Anika was kind enough to join the podcast this week for a chat, and I couldn't be more grateful. Anyway, I strongly urge you to check out Hachiku's latest album, and once you're done giving that a spin, have a listen to our chat, and I'll see you at the end of the episode for some general housekeeping. Anika Ostendorf, thank you very much for joining this episode of Trusty Chords.
Thanks for having me.
So, for those who might not recognize your name, could you give me a quick few words on who you are and why we're chatting today?
Sure. My name's Anika. I play in a band called Hachiku. I guess we're chatting because I make music. So, release music under that name. We just released or about to release an album called The Joys of Being Pure at Heart. And yeah, I guess we'll talk about some music that inspired me in my life to make my own music.
You are definitely correct. That is exactly why we're here. And I guess I should also say before we begin, some folks will undoubtedly recognize an accent from you as well. So tell me if I've got this correct. You were born in America but raised in Germany and now live in Australia?
Yeah, that's right. Yes, stuck with this accent. Can't get rid of it somehow.
Oh, that's fine. Everyone needs like a little hook to make them, really stand out in a crowd.
Yeah, I've been told that I sound like German bogan. I don't know what happened. I'm like yeah, half German, half Australian, half I lived in the UK for a bit as well. So I don't know. I don't know what it is.
That's just how accents go. That they just lose any sort of like history and they just mush together in the end. But
Yeah.
that's obviously not what we're here to discuss. So what we are here to discuss is music. And what I love to do at the start of these podcasts is go back in time to where a love of music first formed. So for you, Anika, do you have any recollection of your earliest memory of when music first resonated for you?
Yeah, I guess it's like my parents, they both are definitely not professional musicians, but like the most passionate hobby musicians. Like my father played in lots of big bands, like play guitar, and my mother plays accordion and singing. So I think they encouraged me quite early to like take classical guitar lessons, which I hated. But there it was never there wasn't much music around. They don't actually listen to a lot of music. Like we didn't have a record player or anything like that. They're like music fans, I guess. So um I think my first favorite band when I was maybe 5 was BR549, this Nashville um, country rock band that my father gave me a CD of. And then, yeah, I think that was the starting point. Jack Johnson and BR549, and my mother singing opera in the kitchen at full volume.
That's definitely a little bit of a strange mix, isn't it? Like opera, Jack Johnson, you've got these other sort of sounds as well. But like that also sounds a little bit strange that they are, such passionate, lovers of music, but they didn't really listen too much to music.
Yeah, and I think that's the same for me these days, I guess. Maybe inherited, I don't know, but love music so much. But very selectively listen to like if I when I was younger, like turning on the radio, I'd be so like, yes, radio, let's listen to music. It made me feel all these emotions. And my mother would go, Anika, can't you just sit with your thoughts? Why do we have to have music on to distract from our thoughts? Um, where now I'm like, I'm very picky these days. It's like I need the optimal listening environment, like stereo speakers, no external noise, um, like or headphones, like something where I'm immersed in the music. Like I like listening to music when it feels like it's the soundtrack
Mm.
to your life happening. Yeah, maybe my parents are similar. I don't know, but yeah,
That is really fascinating, though. But then again, I think at the end of last year, because what I always love to do is listen to as many albums as I can in a year. But because I want to listen to so much, by the end of it, it just becomes a little bit of background noise. And I feel
yeah,
like I'm not listening to the music enough and not experiencing it enough. And I definitely understand that need for the optimal listening environment as well. So it makes
yeah.
total sense.
And I wanted to I don't know, make me it's like it either makes me feel everything or nothing. So it's like I need to be able to give it the full attention that will allow me to make me feel everything, I guess. Maybe.
Well, that is also a nice little segue because one question I also love to ask is, because in those early days, were there any particular artists that you enjoyed? And you mentioned like, Jack Johnson, for example. So like when you were listening to the radio as a young child, were there any artists that you were listening to and you were really thinking, I really like this sound?
Yeah, it depends on the age bracket you're talking to, like or about like probably 5 until 10. I don't really have a huge recollection either of what music I listened to. It was more I was starting to write my own like silly songs with my friend, and I was like I had no ambitions to make them sound like anything. Probably the biggest influence was like the equivalent of Germany's Next Superstar or something, where I'd watch that and I'd be like, that's what I have to be like. I have to enter that competition and go on that TV show. So very mainstream pop music inspired, I guess. And I think my music taste really only developed maybe when I was like 11 or 12 and I started listening. Well, my friend Nico is his name. We would in high school breaks, like the 20 minutes that you have between classes, we'd like sneak out of the side emergency exit and show each other our iPods, and like he'd show me his iPod, I show him my iPod, and then we'd listen to music that way. And at that stage, I think it was very like Billy Talent, My Chemical Romance, the German equivalents of that, like Killer Pilze, they were my favorite. I like a boy rock band. Everyone was like 12, 13, 14 or something. And yeah, it's like inspired by wanting to be like the image of a rock star or something, like being like cool like that. Um but yeah, that's up to the age of 12, I guess, as far as I can remember.
So you also mentioned before that you were sort of writing some like silly songs when you were between the age of 5 and 10. So was that your first sort of experience of like, I guess, becoming musical of writing songs like that, or did that sort of start earlier with your parents?
No, I think that was it. My parents wanted me to do classical guitar, and I was like, I pretended that I was interested in learning it, but the teacher quickly found out that I was just memorizing all the songs, not actually learning the sheet music or anything. And half a year into the lessons, he was like, now let's go back to all the songs and play them from scratch so that you show me everything you've learned. And I was like, I don't know sheet music. I think he was a bit shocked. So I think it was always this like you must take piano lessons, you must do classical guitar. Must is a strong word, but like encouraged by my parents. And then the other side was me just I like asked my sister if I could perform at her fifth birthday party. So I wrote 5 songs to perform at her birthday party. It's like Geburtstag, Geburtstag, heute hat Agatha Geburtstag. Das ist so schön, so wunderbar. Ja, das ist doch allen klar. That was the birthday song I wrote for her, which is in German.
It's catchy. I mean, if you
Yeah.
if you need some inspiration for your next single, I mean,
Yeah. And the other one that I remember was about going to the gym that I was like Unless I go to the fitness center, like I don't know, I took it some dictionary and just looked up all these English words, and I was like, just write a song about a fitness center. I don't know, very random. And I gave myself all these rules of going like drums. You're not allowed to hit the same thing twice, so you have to like it's like just maybe how I do it now as well. You like look at something, you're like, this is how it must work, so you just figure it out and I don't know, play write a random song. Yeah. Nothing of quality, but definitely creatively entertaining for my 7-year-old self.
Because I always find that really fascinating when people say that they were writing songs at an early age, whether they were good songs or whether they were just sort of like silly sort of things. Because I have so many memories of writing songs and all these poems when I was like 13 or 14, and I look back at them now and I'm embarrassed to show them to people because they are so bad. They're so like terrible, and it's so clear that I have no grasp on writing music. But at least for you, I mean, songs about going to the fitness center, they've got potential. So when did you actually sort of, I guess, start making music in a way that was considered more, for lack of a better word, good?
Yeah, good question. I don't know. I think I always back to those rules, self-imposed rules. When I was 14, I was like, I can write a melody and chords, but if I can do that, then I can't write the lyrics. Or I'd be like, I can write the lyrics, but I can't write the melody or chords. So I had this block in me that I was like, I'm never going to finish a song. That's just my fate and destiny, that I'm stuck in this limbo land of not doing it. So I think maybe it's not feeling very encouraged by knowing other people that would like write songs and like do that stuff, that I was sort of just like, oh, that's not for me. But I think I started having friends in high school when I was 14, 15 that were like taking music a bit more seriously, and I was starting to play like covers with them, and I was like, oh, covers I can do, that's easy. And I think writing a finished song was, I went to America with my father. He had to work there for a year. And in that same sense of he's a very passionate hobby musician, I think he really wanted me to pursue music as like a hobby at least. So he's like, I'm gonna pay for a few days in the studio with you. I want you to make a CD. So I was like very uninvolved. So it was more his determined drive, and I was like, oh, I guess I can write a song for that. So I think that was the only time that, or first time, I was maybe 17 that I finished a song to like, and I wasn't proud of it or anything because it wasn't my ambition, but maybe I got out of that, you can't finish a song, you can't write a song. And then after that, I was like, let's do it on my own terms. And yeah, how I
Right.
want to do it.
Because I remember hearing about you back in, I think, 2017 because of the song Moonface, I think it was, which
Yeah.
was released as part of the Milk Records single series. So was that when the Hachiku project started, or were there some steps that led up to that? Because I'm guessing if you were starting to write songs in your teenage years and then going to, the following years, how did it come about is what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I probably the thing that made me really passionate about music and was like, I want to do it, was that I started a biology degree. And maybe a few months into it, I was like, that's not what I want to do. I want to like it took me a long time to get to that stage of realizing music could be pursued as like a career. I think because, yeah, in my German hometown, like making music would always just be a hobby. Like you do it alongside quotation marks, a serious career, which I don't believe in anymore, but I think it was a lot of getting to know people, like the Milk Records crew, and like it was so inspiring meeting people that were doing music as their thing, and that's all they were focused on. And I think it took me until I was in my early 20s to even meet those people. Um, so even though I started having, rather than this faraway dream of I'm going to be on German Idol, for it to become like something hands-on achievable, yeah, it just took a long time. But probably early 20s, the drive of not wanting to do biology, meeting like Courtney Barnett and Jen Clower that were running and founded Milk and that whole music community, where I was like, this is my taste in music. That's what I want to do. And I actually have been presented with a new outlook on how to make it happen. So yeah, that was, I think, 2016 I moved back here, and I was like, okay, I want to try and do it seriously.
And then it was in 2020, I think it was, that you released your debut album, which was I'll Probably Be Asleep. So
Right.
what was that experience like for you? Because, making music is one thing, but then actually releasing a full length body of work, that can be a very big moment in an artist's life.
Yeah, I think I was thinking about that the other day. I think I actually had a dream. I don't think I was consciously aware, but I had this thought, and it sounds so cheesy, but I was like, wow, my early 20 version of myself would be like, oh, you've done a lot of the things you've been wanting to do. Like, I don't know, like, yeah, release an album, go on tour, like make music, make it your thing. Which I never really thought was achievable, in terms of, yeah, what that would look like. And now I'm sort of doing it and I'm like, oh, that's cool. So yeah, same with that record. You're like, I don't know who at some point invented that an album is the medium that music gets released in, and that's the final product that is tangible, where like even individual songs um work, yeah. But I guess, yeah, with an album you have these steps of, this is the album of my 20s, or early 20s. This next record is my late 20s. Like it sort of packages uh period of your life and development and thinking, and presents it. Like, I don't know how that works compared to other art forms like writing, or like it feels very, in that sense, autobiographical for me. Like it's my way of, now I've nicely wrapped up this chapter in my life and move on to, I guess, my 30s now and see what happens.
It was also very fitting that you mentioned sort of having this dream, because we're talking about the album called "I'll Probably Be Asleep." So it seems to be very representative of who you are if you're probably be asleep or having this dream, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, but I guess that also sort of works as a little bit of a nice segue, because you're talking about these chapters of your life. And I guess after that album came out, it was a few years before we really heard more music from you. So what did those few years consist of for you? Because I know that you did some work with Jen Clower, but were you making other music in the background or?
Yeah, I think that's the thing that always I need to be careful to not compare myself to, as well as a lot of, not a lot, but if you're lucky to be in a part of the music industry where you have a lot of like financial backup, let's say advances or huge teams where you are allowed to make music really full time, I think you can be a lot more prolific potentially. Like, or some people are just a lot more prolific. They work really hard. They just make music, put it out there. I think my combination of being very perfectionist, maximalist, and like I can't just make a song and be done with it. It takes me 2 months to make a song, and I like make a big 200 track thing. I have so many ideas. I like freak out by the decisions to make to rein it back into like a neat, nice song. Like it's the process for me to make music is very time consuming, combined with being self-managed, having like yeah, I like to really be involved in the whole background of like the, yeah, like planning the tours, like being, just having hands across everything basically. So the reality of that is that even when I put time aside to make music, it's definitely not going to be as fast as it might be for other people. So even like the Jan Clower record, I think that probably took a good 2 years out of my life in terms of creative energy, because I get so heavily sucked into something and I'm so particular about like it takes me so long to make the tiniest creative decisions because I like try so many different things. So yeah, it's like potentially a little bit reduced output in terms of what other people see, but on the inside, it's very all consuming. Yeah. So yeah, I only quotation marks again did that Jan Clower record for 2 years, but that is really what I did
Hmm.
in my brain full time for 2 years. And then I was like, okay, that's done. Now I can focus on Hachiku again. I'm trying to get faster. I'm trying to get less particular, trying to be a little bit more like, I don't care so much. But then I think also maybe that's part of what makes the music what it is, like sort of crafted over a long period of time. And even to get to the stage of being like, oh, that's what the song's about. This is what the album is about. As I said, because it's so mirroring my personal development and like this is this chapter in my life. I feel like um at least the way that I see even a song and then a body of work, like it really represents the passing of time of my life.
And I mean, you mentioned being a bit of a perfectionist as well. I find myself to be a bit of a perfectionist, which is probably the reason I don't, ever record any music because I can't be happy with ever writing a song. I'm like, it's not good enough. But have you at any point sort of grown to sort of, I guess, become a bit more relaxed with how you write things? Because obviously, if you're a perfectionist, it can be like, oh, I'm going to spend, years trying to perfect this song, and then you start realizing I'm never going to release any music if I keep doing that. Like,
Yeah.
has that been something you've had to sort of struggle with at all?
Yeah, I think what helped me, again, probably my background of in Germany not really having a huge music community around me or anyone that's showing me to do it. But as of recently, like working more with other people and like having friends that are really just like next album, I just wrote 23 songs releasing. Like my friend Snowy, he's just like, bam, bam, music, music, music. I'm like, whoa, like that's cool. Like, maybe I like take elements of it, like I just do one guitar take. And like, I'm weirdly at the same time so non-perfectionist when it comes to certain things. I'm like, anything will do. But it's more that I overwhelm myself with choices and like, um, I've got a very particular taste of what I like. Um, and yeah, I like a lot of things, which maybe that's part of the thing as well. So yeah, I don't know. Next album maybe I'm like half a year. I just go to the studio for 5 days. I just finish it. I write the songs, bam, done. But yeah, I don't know. Continuing process.
But I guess before we get to that album that will just be recorded in 5 days, we do have the new album, which is coming out. And I'm trying to work out. So the album is out today because this podcast is coming out on the day of the album. This is really ridiculous sounding. We're talking a few weeks in advance, just for the mystery of podcasting. So this album is called The Joys of Being Pure at Heart, and I always want to say the pains of being pure at heart, like the band. So how did it feel to sort of come back and reintroduce yourself to the music world like this? Because you released the first single from it last year, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how has that felt? How has the response been, at least to the singles you've released so far?
Yeah, good. It's been really nice, I think. It's like this just, yeah, as I said, wrapping things up now, you put a little bow around it. Like in my mind, I'm like, the second I'm done with the album, I'm happy, I'm like, it's like this thing that you need to get off your chest, and then you're like, ah, now I can move on. But I really love the next steps of like giving it the word that people see, like the music videos, the album cover, the story behind it. I guess even when I'm done with the music, I'm still like, I don't really know. You haven't put your analysis hat on yet, where you're like, okay, now think about that. What does it mean? So I think putting out the songs and talking to people about it is sort of this final stage of just like relief and like releasing it to the people. So yeah, I'm never, I don't know, I'm obviously I want people to like it and resonate with it, but as long as I feel like I've done it justice, which I've tried my very, very best, and I'm still trying my very, very best, and um yeah, I'm happy.
Well, the album is gorgeous because I listened to it this morning because obviously we're recording a little bit before its arrival, so I've had a chance to listen to it, and it's just it's beautiful. It's just such a rewarding album. It's luscious. It's fun. So, how long has this album been in the works, actually? Like, when did you start working on it?
Yeah, probably literally um even before the last album came out, like because I guess albums are always finished a year before they get released, roughly. So what, like 2019, even before COVID, I think I would have already been working on some of the songs. But definitely during COVID, like just having a lot of, I discovered Ableton as like a software, so I was like playing around with that a lot, so learning a new thing and the ideas that came with that. So I definitely would have been working on it over the time periods of like 4 years. On and off different places, just take my laptop out wherever I can. Yeah, and I'm not, I don't know, I know some people they go into like really making an album of like strategically, like this is the concept, this is what it's gonna be about. Like I'm gonna make a sort of sonic theme that I'm gonna adhere to, and that's definitely not how it works for me. I'm like, yeah, 5 months on a song, and then I'm like, just I trust that ultimately because I'm the one that's making them, that's what's going to make them fit together. But yeah, it's
Because you mentioned before, sort of like the idea of having like hundreds of songs and then like paring it down to only a small number. Was that sort of the case? Did you have a lot of songs in contention for this album, or was it more a case of sort of we're lucky we got this many or something?
yeah, that's the same. I think because I spend so they're all like my little babies, and you can't kill the babies, I guess. So I get very attached to once I've invested a certain. Whereas with the first album really, I was like, here's my 8 songs, and these are the only 8 songs that I'm going to be making for this. And if anyone has a problem with it, that's it, because it would take me another 8 months to do another song. This one, I actually I think I probably had around loosely, like, let's say 20 ideas, but the second I felt uninspired by something, I just put it away. Like the whole idea of like editing yourself and like creating more so that you can dial it back, at least in terms of songs, and still getting used to, yeah. Because everything's so precious to me. So I like to keep it close.
See, and as someone who also writes songs, I'm the sort of person who, if I'm ever writing something, I always feel, well, it's amazing that I've even come this far. I don't want to get rid of this hard work that I've put into it. And especially if you're actually creating, like, I mean, you can be songwriting, but then you're actually creating the music as well. And then you've invested so much more time. And it's sort of, it becomes that, I think they call it the sunk cost fallacy, where you think, I've put so much time into it, I don't want to get rid of all the hard work that I've done. And I can imagine that would be very hard for someone who describes himself as a perfectionist as well, right?
Yeah, though I think the whole point of that fallacy as well is that you're meant to recognize that if something's not good, even though you've spent a lot of time on it, it's not going to get any better, right? That's the thing
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
realized. I'm like, just because I'm so used to all these sounds now, and I'm like, you've really tried hard. Maybe sometimes just put it in the bin. And but I really like the like recycling. We have to recycle. We can't. I just don't know. It doesn't come natural to me. If I have food in the fridge, I'm gonna eat it until it goes moldy. And I think I have the same attitude to creating things.
Well, this album certainly isn't moldy. It's a beautiful record. So I do always love to ask some more hard-hitting questions about music. So, what does the joys of being pure at heart say about who you are as an artist in 2025?
Yeah, well, I guess it is, as you said, like a reference to the band, The Pains of Being Pure at Heart. And I think that as a child, not child, teenager, I was always like, what's painful about that? Like, surely it's good to remain pure and innocent in your heart. And I guess over the course of becoming an adult, uh, being in touch with the world, news, like just being a human, I guess, that's growing up rather than childlike. You realize that yeah, it's hard to maintain a certain level of hope and like not even innocence, but just an outlook that's not jaded and bitter by all the horrible. Not everything's horrible in life, but a lot of horrible things that happen. So I think yeah, that's what like I think I'm quite naturally very optimistic and a little bit like could be considered naive in ways, but I think I'm yeah always just trying really hard to like keep feeling encouraged to make things happen. And I think yeah, that's what that means to me.
Now, there are also some shows coming up once the album is out as well. And in fact, it's a very good thing that we're both wearing glasses because if I look at the little poster you've got, I need to really look close to read all these dates. And there's the US, the UK, Australia, Europe. I feel a little bit exhausted for you. How are you feeling ahead of time?
I thanks. That's I'm glad you're yeah, I'm feeling exhausted too. I think because post-COVID it's really been I'm excited too. Let me put that first.
Of
Like I
course.
feel like that's what we do it for, Like you make this music for yourself in ways, get it all out there, and then like what brings you that ultimate this is it is like standing on a stage and playing to people like that energy you get from it. So I'm really excited to get going with it. Post COVID, I think it's just quite tricky with like booking agents that we had. They've changed industries. Like it's a quite a new touring environment. So all these dates that you can't read on that page, every single show, I probably emailed 40 venues to make them happen because we don't have booking agents in like the US or the UK. So There's a lot of work that went into that. And yeah, I'm quite proud actually that it ended up being like booking a tour on that works, not just like timing wise, but logistically of like, how am I gonna drive there and how am I gonna bring the people like band members and whatnot. Like it's a that's why it's on job. So I'm trying to yeah, do someone else's job. But I think I feel like everything's a little bit under control now. Like we don't have like huge chunks of time off or anything like that. So part of that's why it's taking me 4 years to make an album because in the meantime I'm also trying to book like a 22-date run of shows through Europe.
That's understandable because Europe is quite a large place when you want to be, touring through it, isn't it?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's the only option really. If we want to play those shows, if I don't make them happen, I need to find someone else to make them happen. So the idea is we'll do this tour and then hopefully get booking agents and more team members on the
Amazing.
side to help us out with it.
And I guess that also leads into another question I had, which is, for those who haven't had the pleasure of seeing a Hachiku show before, explain to me, what is the experience like?
Okay, jokes. I sometimes make jokes. Um, I there's four of us sometimes. Sometimes there's just me. Like if it's a band formation, there's two guitars, bass, drums. Are you asking really the like detailed of like what they're gonna see or what they're gonna feel? Because I don't know what people will feel because I haven't watched myself play. So I'll just explain to you what the stage looks like. There's
Feel
a drum
free.
kit, bass, two guitars. We have a sampler, so there'll be some sound coming through the speakers that you can't see anyone play live. It's backing track. Sometimes I play a keyboard. Sometimes I can't be bothered bringing this huge keyboard with me, so I'll just play guitar. Do I tell a lot of stories? Yeah, I try to tell the story every second or third song, either about the songs, but mainly just jokes. Sometimes I say secret things about my band members, which they get annoyed with me afterwards because they tell me things in private, and I didn't realize it was private. Um, and music-wise, I guess there's reverb. I like a lot of reverb on my vocals. Distorted guitars. Sometimes I've got two distortion pedals now. Um, and that's about all I can say
No, that's
about the live
completely
show.
fair. I mean, I can only imagine now if anyone has any has any questions about what to expect when they see you live, it is now completely explained away. So I feel I should get down to the portion of the podcast from which its namesake is derived. So trusty chords, it sees me follow the 1, 3, and 5 structure of a standard chord, and I ask you about one artist that's impacted you, 3 albums that have influenced you, and 5 songs you can always turn to. And these albums and songs don't need to be by that one artist. So my first question for you here, Annika, is what was the one artist that's inspired you the most, whether it be personally or creatively?
Yes, I really didn't realize that with the 135. That's cool. Yeah.
I'm so glad
Okay.
someone
One
thinks it's cool because I just think it's just a nerdy little explanation that no one really appreciates. So I appreciate that.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I never really was big on theory, but I've actually recently done a music theory for songwriters course with my father that he bought me for Christmas, and I was like, I'm only doing it if you're doing it with me. So yeah, I I am more into the music language these days. Okay, the one artist that changed my life. Yeah, my obvious choice would have to be Beach House. I think probably from a producer perspective, but also just feelings perspective. I feel like they were like the first band that I listened to where I realized that you can use music to create a world um, that sort of exists as like this alternative reality to your bleak or boring day to day, like where it really like sucks you in and you can get like lost in it. Where before that, I think like what I said earlier, with like I listened to like Billy Talent, My Chemical Romance, those sorts of bands, where I was like, get me the guitar tabs. I want to learn how to do power chords. Like it was really like this is rock music. Like nothing wrong with rock music, but I think the first time I heard Beach House, it was like this really transformative, like it's magic. It's like what music can do to your brain where it makes you feel like a part of something else or like flying or like yeah, like I was like walking on this beach in Spain, I think on a like holiday or something, and I put that on. And it was like the waves were there and the wind was in my hair, and suddenly everything starts to feel different. And I think that's what Beach House did to me. And I think they were, in terms of how they've changed my life, I think because when I heard that as a possibility, that's a thing one can do, I was like, that's what I want to make. I want to make these sorts of, and I think that's, yeah, you can hear that in Hachiku music, like making these big worlds that are like vast and a little bit like just, yeah, you create something that's um otherworldly or something.
Because that, I mean, I understand exactly where you're coming from with Beach House's music. There's something just so sort of immersive, and it just sort of it overtakes you a little bit when you hear it. Like it sounds so much bigger than you are. And actually, admittedly, while I was listening to the new album of yours, that was actually sort of how I felt, at least in like the first few songs as well. I was like, this is really immersive and very luscious. It's so good, is the best way I can put it. Because much like Beach House, it's a indescribable feeling, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's
Mm.
like what I what we're trying to explain earlier with this, like when I listen to music, I wanted to feel like the soundtrack to life, right? Like that sort of like sonic vastness where that then life can happen among it. That's what I like, and that's how I want things to feel and sound. Um, yeah, there's so many artists that achieve that, but I don't know. That's what I'm drawn to, and yeah, Beach House deliver it perfectly every time.
And then next up, what are the three albums that have impacted you the most? And these could be albums that you're always listening to or something that was integral to your musical evolution.
Yeah. So I must confess early on that when I find a new album, at the moment that's the new FKA Twigs album, for example, that's I listen to it and then I'm about to listen to something else and I'm like, nah, I just listen to that again. I just like nothing else will satisfy me. So the albums that I've listened to in my life, I've listened to them a lot, like nothing. Like sometimes for 3 months at a time, I would just listen to one album. So yeah, one of them was the Sufjan Stevens Carrion Low. I don't know how you say it. Low.
Low,
Oh,
I think. Yeah.
yeah. Um, I think I listened to that one of those times, like 3 months, repeat. I think I was at uni, just finishing up like my exchange year actually. And I think that album is so, I guess it's sad, right? Like, it's about his mom dying, and it's the first album I think that I listened to where I realized that universal emotion that one can put in music. Like I think I'm quite drawn to sounds usually, like how the sounds make me feel. Whereas I think this was one of the first albums where really the words struck with me or stuck to me. And I think it was the first album also that I saw as this like very cohesive body of work where the whole album beginning to end was like it was really like watching a really sad movie, but as an album, like pure heartbreak. And maybe at the time I think it was a stage in my life, nothing like related to it. He's like no death or that sort of related grief, but maybe a certain it was I had just met my now partner, but we sort of were like a year of just being friends, and like in that time period of the 1 year of like me being like, oh, I have so many feelings and like I don't know how to talk about them, and having a certain sort of like that longing for like love and like loneliness that comes with it, but in a very dramatic, romanticized movie way. That's how I felt internally of like, no one can understand this because I can't talk to anyone about it. But always when I put on that album, it would just be like soothing in a way because it was so relatable because it's like it's about death and grief, but I think those universal feelings of loss and like longing, they kind of come up in many different scenarios. But yeah, it was like I felt like I hadn't quite figured out how to make love work for me in my life. And I think that album reminds me of that. So that's one. Second one is Perfume Genius, Set My Heart on Fire Immediately. which I think that's definitely also storyline, like lyrics. Like I love gay things. I love like any queer sort of singer story that I find relatable in itself. But probably primarily that album for me, the production and the mixing. I feel like I can't really get much better than that. Like how it's so meticulously sculpted and like it explodes into these massive sound bursts. And yeah, I think Blake Mills, who co-produced or produced it, it's like the sounds that they've put in. It's like I don't even know what instruments they are. And I love that sort of like music that's really familiar, but you still can't put your finger on what it is that you're listening to or like define it. Which is the same, I think, what I'm explaining with like Beach House, right? Like just takes you somewhere that's not quite reality, but so relatable still. Um, and yeah, I think in terms of mixing too, like the how perfectly that record is mixed, at least to my ears, like the stereo image, the distortion, like the room that it takes you to, the way the vocals sound, like the reverb, like I don't know, it's very like perfect album for me. And every time when I'm mixing a song and I'm trying to figure out where should the things go, how I listen to something on that album, and I get really depressed because I'm like, no, not depressed, just like disillusioned because I'm like, oh my God, this is so much better. What am I doing? But that's okay. It's inspiration, regardless.
That's the main
Uh,
thing. As long as it's inspiration and not just, making you it's making you more despondent every time you're trying to make new music.
No, I think that's a you that thing where people are like you've got taste and then you spend your whole life trying to match your creation to your taste, right?
Mm.
So that defines my taste and now I'm trying to like inspire to do it. Yeah, and even things like time-based like effects like delays and stuff. I think before that album I never knew that you because I think when things are big they need to be really full, like lots of things, whereas I think that album perfectly achieves fullness without while being very empty in terms of instrumentation. So you've just got like one synth that has a delay on it, and that delay that's going all around goes to boo, 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 and you suddenly you're like, oh, that's where this like big elephant in the room's coming from. Whereas I go like I need 80 tracks and then suddenly you're completely overwhelmed. So yeah, less is more. That's what that album's I think teaching me as well.
And then what's our third album?
Okay, third one, don't judge me, but this is from my childhood, not childhood, teenagehood, that time when I was talking about going outside at school with my friend Nico, and we show each other music. So it's Panic at the Disco, Pretty Odd,
Oh, there's
which,
nothing wrong with that album. Nothing
okay,
wrong at all.
right. I was like, I don't know what people think of Panic at the Disco these days,
I,
but
I love Panic at the Disco. In fact, only 2 days ago, I listened to the entire discography with my wife while we were driving.
I must admit, I think I only ever listened to the Pretty Odd album, and after that, I was like, I don't know what happened actually. But anyway, that I think it just came out at a time in my life. I think I turned 14, and it was sort of like start of puberty, and I think I felt a little bit more in myself, like starting to figure out what I like and who I want to be. So when I talked to my psychologist about it, she was like, music for me, I think in that time period is like a real like escape sort of from the real world, like sort of a bit high school is a bit like sometimes annoying friends and all that, like figuring out how you fit in there. So I think I just listened to that album all the time and like would sing along to it. And it's like this fun little thing. And I think also, yeah, I think musically I was very as I said, like my parents didn't give me this big musical background of this is the Rolling Stones, this is this band, you should know this or that. So for me, there's no musical context of what's happened the 50 years before that. So I tried to get my father to listen to it, and he was like, have you ever heard of the Beatles? And I guess now when I listen to it, I'm like, oh yes, they've just they even recorded it in Abbey Road, I think. But
Mm.
to me, that was like the Beatles of 2008. Like I didn't know who the Beatles were. I listened to that album and I was like, ooh, look at there's all these Baroque sounds in it and like flutes and like non-traditional like rock music instruments and yeah, I think it just shows you that like music out of context of time, like everything's new and exciting, right? And as a 14-year-old, something that my father finds really boring was new and exciting for me and the most original thing I'd ever heard. And yeah, but even the name, I think at the time I didn't think about it, but like I didn't even know what pretty odd means. Like I'd never, but now when I just looked at it earlier, I was like, ah, it's funny. It's called pretty odd because I think I felt probably quite odd myself in those teenage years and must have resonated with it.
Yeah, it was an album that I remember when it came out. It was a little bit controversial amongst their fans because they'd come from a sound that was a little bit different and a little bit more like synthesizer heavy. Then they went on to this album, and it's just like if you compare their early stuff to songs like Northern Downpour, for example, which I adore that song, and you just listen to that, and it's an album which it's very pretty, but it's very odd in their discography, and it makes sense, but only in hindsight, I feel.
Yeah, like when I looked it up just before, just because I was like remembering this album, and I was like, I wonder what it was all about. Rolling Stone called it the record one of the boldest moves in rock history, which might be a very exaggerated,
It's a
but
little bit exaggerated, but I
a little
understand
bit
where they're coming from.
exaggerated.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I think because they had just had that huge album that like was got platinum, like so many sales, like
Mm.
going down that trajectory of like indie rock, like synth world. And then rather than keeping going with that and probably just making money and making fans happy, they go like, let's make an acoustic album with harpsichord and flutes and yeah, like definitely bold. Maybe not the boldest, but yeah, I had no context. I knew that other song that I chimed in with that. Like I knew that song.
Mm.
I didn't really like it, and then I heard that a few. Like I think probably why I've only listened to that one album of Panic at the Disco is because that's the one that speaks to me
Mm.
compared to probably the 98% of the other fans that like all the other stuff.
Of course.
Um,
Plus, nothing else in the discography will compare to that album either. So it's the only one. If you like
exactly.
that one, there's no point going anywhere else.
No, and I don't know how it came to me, but yeah, it was huge for me when I was 14.
Mm. And then our last question is I'd love to know the 5 songs that you can always turn to, whether it be for comfort, for excitement, anything at all, your 5 trusty songs.
Yeah. That one I found hard to answer because, as I said, I'm more like an album person, but there's definitely same with just listening to one album on repeat. If I come across a song that I really love, I will listen to that on end. And most of the ones that I'm gonna tell you about are the ones that if I'm at home and I like put on that song, then I want to like dance with like Marcel, my partner, and just be like have like a ooh like nice I don't know, nice time. So first one would be ABBA Slipping Through My Fingers,
Mhm.
which I think maybe of all the ABBA songs is quite niche as well. I don't know. I think we watched Mamma Mia recently, the ABBA musical, and my friend was like, "What the hell is this song? I've never heard it." But I think um, I first got in touch with ABBA through the Mamma Mia musical. So that one is just, I don't know, it breaks my heart that whole idea of like the mother and the daughter and like she's like oh she's growing up and moving away and I think I just think about my mother and me leaving Germany and moving to Australia, so I can listen to that song on repeat 50 times and it's so sad. So that's the first one. Then this is so in terms of my record collection, I always also kind of end up playing just the same record when I get to choose it. And it's always Stevie Wonder songs in the key of life. And it's always the first song that loves In Need of Love Today.
Mm.
That I don't know, something about it. It's just it really uh like you can sing along to it, makes you happy. And as you said, a song you can turn to, right? Like I can put that on at any time and feel things. Um then this one, I don't think many people would know about. It's a German band, similar time era of what I was talking about just before, like my when I was 14, 13, 14. They're called Jennifer Rostock, and the song's called Kopf oder Zahl, which is like Head or Tails is the literal name of it. But it's the only song maybe in the world, where I know the lyrics beginning to end, and it's very fast. It's like you can yeah, like you really have to speak German very fast to get all the words in and stuff. But I must have listened to it so much when I was 13 that they're just so deeply ingrained. Um, and it's not music I listen to anymore now, but I think it was just at the time as well when that came out. It was like a very big emo phase, like comb over, long hair, like Vans, Converse shoes, and uh, I always wanted to be like that, and I never really dared to be that person. So it's like the if I was a bit cooler, this is the music I'd make and the band I'd play in, and like in terms of dreaming of another life. Um, yeah, so that's three.
Mhm.
And then I love Icelandic music, so I think similar to what I said with Beach House and the Perfume Genius record, like I feel like Icelandic music, it just takes you into that mountain world of nature and thinking of a different reality or something. So actually I don't know how to pronounce this song, but it's Svefnengla. I don't know.
Yes, I know the song very well. Yeah,
Okay, cool.
I'm
Yeah,
I'm a huge fan of Siros.
yeah, I love that. And that song I think one because of this Iceland connection, I really just love Iceland, and I think when I was 14 as well, it gave me this like space to dream of like I'm gonna go to Iceland, I'm gonna make music there, I'm gonna live in a like in the forest and like just drink mountain water, which I haven't done, but I don't know, it just still makes you feel this experience. And Marcellen, she got it for me on record when we first got together as a Christmas present. So I feel sort of significant in that way. And then we had this one moment where uh we would do a lot of road trips, like in our early 20s. And one particular time we were sleeping in the car and it was like 7 a.m. and I was a photographer, so she was going to take a photo of this like mine shaft that was going to be exposed. But we just happened to wake up at like 6:30 a.m. And the sun was slowly coming up over like it's like the outback, Australian outback, so a very red desert landscape and no person inside, nothing inside, really, no house, nothing, and just the sun coming up, and that in that song there's this build up where the just the music like a sense and a sense and a sense. And suddenly when it hit, that was when sun came up, and it was just like you could perfect. It was like the sun had timed itself to the music. No, no, I'll never forget it. It was very unique. Uh, I was like, this is this type of music is what makes the world go round.
That type of music is pretty much what I listened to exclusively when I was in high school. Well, that and Panic at the Disco and My Chemical Romance. But apart from that, it was Sigur Rós. And yes, I adore that band to this day.
Yeah, yeah. We must have had similar taste then. Maybe we would have exchanged iPods in high school.
Quite possibly. There was plenty of Billy Talent on mine as well, but sadly there was no Jennifer Bostock.
Yeah, you might enjoy them. They're very of an era. I don't know. Yeah, very aged quickly, I think, but I love it. Okay, so now last song, I can tell you the honest one, which is embarrassing, or the cool one. So maybe I'll do a slash. I'll give you. So do you know that guy on the internet on YouTube, Shmoyoho or something, where he'll take people's like YouTube videos and make a song out of it, songifies
Yes, I
song.
have. Yes.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
my favorite song in the world, and every club I go to, every like time we're out at 2 a.m., I'm like, are they gonna play my favorite song? And they never do because it's a potentially, I don't even know if you consider it a song, but it's called Can't Hug Every Cat. And it's just he made a song out of this woman who gave an interview about her eHarmony video about cats and how much she loves cats. And it is a song because it makes you cry. She's like, I wish I'm a cat lover. And I wish I could hug every cat and help every cat and make them like give them a home. And I just can't help all the cat. Like it's emotional, and it's a song, and it's a pop song, and I love pop music, and it's catchy, and I don't know, can't describe it. The cool version equivalent, let's say, I'm gonna choose the Knife Heartbeats because I love the Knife, and I think
Such a
they
difference between those two songs. Of
different but same different side of the same coin of like a
course.
digestible pop music. Yeah, not that the Knife are digestible, that they're amazing. They're like so evolved and like I don't know, but being able to again like use simple instrumentation and make an amazing song that just sticks with you. And yeah, I find the Knife really inspirational in that way of like and you can probably hear it in Hachiku music as well of like sort of synth. Like if I would have to describe it, I'd probably go beach house mixed with the Knife mixed with Grimes or something. That's sort of how I see my music put into like a blender and make smoothie out of it. But yeah, that's that.
And I should also say, as someone who is a definite cat lover, I completely agree with the whole they can't hug every cat. Like I know the original video that it is from, and I've seen that, and I just feel that woman's pain so much.
Well, yeah, listen to it, spread the word, and then at some point, this is my dream in life. I want to go to a club, can be a gay club, any club, and I want one of the DJs in seriousness play this song for me because I'm waiting.
Well, I will at the very least ensure that one day when my band is playing, I will have that as our walk-on music, just in honor of you.
Yes, please.
Well, I should say, Annika, I want to say thank you so very much for your time today and for being part of the Trusty Chords podcast as well.
Thanks for having me. It was very fun.
Thank you for listening to Trusty Chords. If you listened to this episode and enjoyed it, I would really appreciate it if you were able to take a few moments to like, follow, share, and review this podcast on your preferred platform of choice. As always, there's no obligation to do so, but I am forever grateful if you do. As always, I'm over on Instagram and Facebook at Trusty Chords Podcast, all one word, and I've also got a blog on my website, which is tylerjenke.com, that's tylerjenke/Trusty Chords Podcast, all one word. You know by now what you can find on that site, but you can also find a link to the Buy Me a Coffee platform where you can throw me a few dollars to keep this podcast running, but only if you feel so inclined. Lastly, I need to thank Anika Ostendorf for spending time with me this week for the podcast, and I also need to thank the ever wonderful Jenna from Super Duper for helping organise this chat as well. But once again, thank you kindly for listening, and I hope to see you all again next week as I continue to celebrate music and those that create it.